So when I was about 19 years old, I was working in a call center. I was answering phone calls from very upset customers. I was setting up payment plans for this accountancy company. I was only making £19,000 a year, which was far, far below the national average. And I was watching porn pretty much every day. I remember playing Fortnite in my room. I was paying my landlord £400 in cash every month, which was like barely any money, to be honest with you. And yeah, I lived on the top floor of this 5-bedroom house. I didn't talk to anyone in the house because I don't know if anyone even spoke English. It was a very weird situation, and I was not in a good place mentally. I didn't really have any skills. I didn't have that great an education, and yeah, I was just lost. But what I did have was a vision. I had a goal in my mind. I had this aim. I had something I really wanted to do. I really wanted to create, and I know this sounds a little bit insane, but my goal back then, and this is like 7 years ago, was to create the world's best online course for helping people live a porn-free life. I was in a porn addiction. I wanted to overcome that problem. I knew on some level this NoFap stuff wasn't the one. It wasn't getting me to where I wanted to be, and so that was my goal. And from there, I decided to read a lot of books, probably over 100 books in self-improvement, psychology, and many other topics, business. And I started to just learn and grow and improve, and then I started a podcast, and this was in 2020. I started a podcast talking about this football platform that I used to buy and sell shares on. It was like a gambling kind of football platform. It was a virtual stock market called Football Index. And I remember this was 1st of January 2020. I decided to start a daily podcast. And I actually stuck to it for over 400 and something consecutive days. And the purpose of starting up that podcast was because I had like a speech problem. I'm still not that good at talking today, but I was very, very bad in the past. I couldn't be heard very well, not very clear. And I'm sure there's some people listening who still are unable to this day to hear me speak particularly eloquently or anything like that, right? But I was very bad at speaking back then, and my dad used to pick me up on it all the time. And so I decided to start a podcast because I was like, one of the first things I need to do if I'm ever going to build an online program that helps people with porn addiction is I need to get better at talking, and I need to get comfortable talking with that being recorded and then shared online. So I did over 400 podcast episodes talking about football because it was something I was very comfortable talking about. So I did that, and then I built an online program. I had over 3,500 men in a online Facebook community that I ran, and I had an online business where I had a few hundred customers in a different online community for this football platform, and it was only £10 a month, and I provided tons of value, loads of blogs. We had the community. I had like one-on-one messaging, had all of these skills which I knew would one day be transferable to building the online business for helping people with the porn addiction. And then that business ended with the football, and to be honest, I lost a lot of money. The business as a whole was a failure, and my mum and dad probably thought, Jesus Christ, what is our son doing? I was in a bad position still. I was still addicted to the porn. And yeah, I'd learned a lot of skills. And so then I went on the mission to, okay, well, I've learned a lot of skills here. Now I'm a lot more comfortable with podcasting. I'm going to set up a podcast to talk about my journey of quitting porn. So I set up the Finally Quit Porn podcast. That's what it was called. And for the first maybe 50 to 100 episodes, I was just talking about my journey. I was talking about the books I was reading, the psychology I was learning, and I was also sharing when I had relapses. And I was probably one of the first people to actually run a podcast, because this was still quite a few years ago. I was probably one of the first people to have a porn addiction recovery podcast who would share openly, publicly, look guys, I'm still relapsing, and I talk about that. And then I started to invite people from all over the world onto the podcast, because this American company called podcastguests.com got in touch with me, and they sent me this spreadsheet of people who wanted to come on my podcast. And it was this like big program where they were like sort of connecting different podcast guests together and stuff. So I gave it a go. I had these different people from all over the world onto my podcast to talk about porn addiction recovery. Most people were just saying the same generic nonsense. They hadn't taken any real interest in me or the podcast, and they just wanted to sell their own online course or whatever. Fair enough, whatever. So that wasn't too great. But then one of them was very different to anyone else. That was Mary Paulus, who actually seemed to actually care about people, seemed to actually care about addiction recovery, and was very passionate about that. So she comes on the podcast, we have a conversation, and then at the end of it, she was like, Tom, I heard on your podcast recently that you relapsed. Would you like help? Would you like help with that? See, I'm still not that good at talking. But I'm better than I was, that's for sure, and that's the main thing, right? So I was like, well, yeah, I would like help. Let's do it. So I end up having a number of coaching sessions with Mary, and she teaches me the Beyond Compulsion method. I then eventually changed the podcast name and the YouTube channel to all be around Beyond Compulsion, because I'd realised at this point, oh my God, I've actually found something that works. I started to use her method. I relapsed 2 times under her method, and then I ended up on what I call the straight line now, which is when you stop the behaviour and you stay stopped. I've been on the straight line now for over a year, and that's amazing. I didn't really... I don't know, there's been a lot of times I didn't really believe I'd get to this position where I can say very comfortably, yeah, I've smashed it. I've smashed porn addiction recovery. It is possible. Anyone can do this, but it really required me to get the right training. So anyway, we started working together, getting this method to more and more people, because I knew it would help people. I knew it would be better than anything else that people had come across before, because I'd been on a mission, 100 books, speaking to people all over the world. I'd even worked for a guy, actually, and I've forgot to mention this, but I even worked for a different guy once for free because he ran a porn addiction recovery program, and he was charging clients one-on-one £10,000, and I was like, that is insane. People shouldn't have to pay £10,000 to overcome this problem. So I ended up working for him by literally messaging him on Facebook. I just said, hey, your social media is terrible. I've got some social media skills. Can I help you for free? Because I want to learn more about your program. So I did that for a bit as well. That was about 6 to 12 months. He was actually a great guy. He paid me $500 every single month. He was very consistent. He helped me learn a lot, and he invited me to join his online program as well, which cost $2,000. He let me join that for free to learn more about porn addiction recovery. Unfortunately, I disagree wholeheartedly with that approach that he was teaching, as I do most approaches outside of the Beyond Compulsion method. But still, to have the opportunity to learn and grow and be with other people in a community who are all trying to stop porn was great. And, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So that was another thing I did. That was around the time I still had my own podcast. And I think he came on that podcast and stuff, but this was quite a while ago. So anyway, I was basically just on a mission. I was like, right, my goal is create the world's best online course for helping people overcome pornography addiction, live a porn-free life. That was my goal. I never knew how I would achieve that goal. I wouldn't say I've necessarily achieved it yet because we don't have that many members. I personally, and I'm very, very biased, and I know people think I'm just very arrogant saying this or overconfident or whatever, but I personally do believe what we have built now is the best online course for helping people overcome porn addiction recovery. And I'm not saying that just to try sell you or any shit like that. I just do think that because of the results. And if you go watch our calls with maybe Mike or Gavin, you'll see how they talk about the method and how they actually just feel empowered. They realise that literally everything they do moment by moment is a choice, and they never have to consent to helplessness and be some slave to their temporary compulsive desires. So yeah, I really do believe in what we've built, but we're not quite there yet. The next steps now is marketing. It's just marketing the program. It's we've done the back end work. We've worked with clients for over a year and a half. We've got results. Now it's how do we get this out there to the masses? That's the next step. So just got off a call with a videographer in London. We had a really interesting conversation. He doesn't actually have the time, and I don't have the budget to work with him right now, which is a shame because I would have loved to. But he's going to put the word out there to more videographers about this mission and what we're working on here. And we'll see what we can do. Maybe I can get a different videographer to come in and help us with some more YouTube videos and create maybe more visually stimulating content. We'll see. So I'm excited for the mission, and let's see where it goes. I don't know yet, and to be honest with you, I don't think I need to know. Even if I don't ever achieve this goal of creating the world's best online course for helping people live a porn-free life, I would have enjoyed the journey. I would have enjoyed the process. I would have enjoyed learning so many things and leveling up in so many areas of my life to even have a chance of achieving this and helping the masses overcome this problem, which hit me so hard, right? But yeah, if you take one thing away from this, it's just that you're not going to be ready to achieve the thing you want to achieve right now, but it's having the goal and then you work towards that, and it's through that journey that you develop the skills, the capabilities to get to the goal, if that makes sense. So this is like a goal of mine from like 7 years ago. Like, there was literally no chance 7 years ago I could run an online course talking about porn addiction recovery, because I hadn't even spoke to anyone else about my porn addiction. Like, I just wasn't that guy back then. But by having this vision, I've learned so many skills along the way, and I knew that even with my career over the last 5 years, I've been picking careers for myself that I knew would give me the transferable skills. I worked in tech for 3.5 years. That wasn't a coincidence. I knew that one day if I want to create an online course that helps millions of people, I'm going to kind of need to know a little bit about tech. Not everything, but it's going to be useful, right? So every step of the way I've kind of known what I was doing a little bit, which has been cool. Still on the journey. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully you can take something away from this video, and hopefully you know that actually it can be really good to set a goal bigger than yourself, bigger than where you're at right now, and you can achieve it. You can get there, and it may take 10 years, it may take 30, it may take 50, whatever. It's the process, it's the journey. It's just being on that continuous path of working towards something bigger than yourself, which can bring so much purpose and meaning to your life. And I know it's a little bit different to my usual content, but hopefully it's a nice little listen. Cheers guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.